Hello, YouTube. In my travels, I have met a lot of people, families with children, who have been harassed so much wrongfully and unjustly by social workers with children's services in various states, at the behest of people who had some malicious vendetta that they had set out upon those families. Oftentimes, those families and their children had not done anything at all wrong, but they had one or more individuals who persistently would hound the agency to initiate investigations against them and their children, to such a degree that those families would abandon their homes, allow their credit to be ruined, or sell their homes and lose their assets simply to get away from the threat of being swatted by Department of Children and Families, CPS, and all the other sister agency acronyms that the child welfare offices go by. These individuals may go for years or even longer until their children are grown without having a permanent home, without having a permanent address, traveling about or living in such a way so as not to generate a traceable public record through which CPS could find them with a public records search in order to harass them and wrongfully remove their children. There are people who are informants, whistleblowers, or just being persecuted because of their identity or their politics or some other factor about them. Maybe somebody didn't like them and they end up in a feud with someone or a family of people. And these people end up under perpetual persecution from the agency when they haven't done anything wrong. And they can't own any real estate. They can't buy a house. They cannot get legal advocacy from the legal nonprofits in the United States, in some of the states, or any of the states. They'll go around and they'll contact every bar attorney across a very wide area. When I talk about every bar attorney here, I am literally saying hundreds to thousands of bar attorneys who demand to be paid. Nobody will take on these cases on a pro bono basis because of the sheer volume of them. Or you don't meet the gender identity or racial demographic or sex-based stereotype for the people that those agencies would typically help. And so you end up with families, and I've met these families in person, who are refugees in perpetuity, simply trying to evade contact with the agency at any possible point, any way that they can. Even if they're just getting in their car and they're driving somewhere else, or they're living with various different family members across different counties, states, even in other countries. There are individuals out there who cannot escape unlawful, wrongful, unconstitutional harassment by the child welfare agencies. And so the agency doesn't respect due process. They don't respect probable cause or warrant requirements or court order requirements. And they just harass these people. And you end up with single parents and married parents or unmarried parents who end up with anxiety disorders and panic disorder and depression. And the repeated contact with the agency just breaks some of these people. They develop very serious health problems. They develop asthma that is triggered by their anxiety attacks and their panic attacks. And people end up being so stressed that sometimes it kills them. I know how extreme that might sound, but that's actually happening. Don't judge a book by its cover. Don't say, well, oh, hey, that person's, white, brown, whatever, they're this sex. Oh, they must be well off. They don't look like they're in distress. No. All across the racial demographic, all across the sex-based demographic, country of origin demographic, black, white, Mexican, various different cultures, you're going to find that this is happening to people. It's not a huge number of cases, but it's happening to people. And these people live under constant threat to the point where being harassed and targeted by the agency literally becomes a defining focal point of how they live their life, where they live, where they work, who they date, what activities they engage in, social outings they have. Everything becomes done in consideration of, is this going to possibly result in contact with social services, children's services, or law enforcement with whom social services has flagged in the DPS system the identities of those people. So if they have contact with them in a traffic stop, law enforcement will give them a hard time. I kid you not, this is happening. It's unconstitutional. It's illegal. There are families out there right now, this very second, they're dealing with this situation. They need that legal assistance and they can't get it. They need injunctive relief and a permanent restraining order against the agency, simply so that they can live, even though they're not doing a thing wrong. I mean, nothing. Perfect home, clean, kids are healthy, they don't do any drugs, they don't drink, they don't date dangerous people, they don't hang out with dangerous people, employed, everybody's well taken care of, everything is exactly as it needs to be, not to justify any kind of contact with the agency. But some of these people have made very motivated enemies who will go out there and just raise hell. Like, oh, I don't like this person. I think I want them to move away. I'm going to call CPS. Oh, I want this tenant to move out of this apartment. I'm going to call CPS. They have young children. This tenant complains too much because of justified concerns that they have about safety, about mold, about their AC not working. I'm going to call CPS. This neighbor is doing too much in the community. They're cleaning up. They're out there. They're doing things I don't want them to do. They're making a difference. This is my neighborhood. I'm going to call CPS. I don't like this guy living next door to me. I don't want a white person living next door to me. I'm going to call CPS. I want those kids for welfare. I'm going to call CPS. I want food stamps. I want the pity of other people for taking these kids in. I knew somebody who was doing this. I'm going to call CPS. That's exactly how they operate. Where you've got a sexual abuser who is wanting to discredit the outcries of one of their victims. So they will do the same thing that other prominent figures in the media recently have done. You can think of one in particular, who just make something up and accuse their opposition of doing the exact same thing that they are either doing themselves or planning to do. And then they try to weaponize the authorities against those innocent people. And what ends up being the case is that, just imagine a constant state of disruption, being unable to go to work without disturbance, being unable to go to school without disturbance. If your kids are enrolled in public school, they're being harassed at public school. Not questioned once, but questioned dozens and dozens and dozens of times without being allowed a lie to advocacy, without being advised of constitutional rights, without having any kind of Miranda-style warning given to you or your children. Illegal searches, illegal pictures being taken, your rooms in your house being searched, them taking pictures of your refrigerator and the inside of your cabinets and your personal bedroom drawers with no history of drug or alcohol abuse. Absolute invasion of privacy, completely unconstitutional, completely illegal. And then people making things up maliciously to drive these illegal searches. And then the agency and its workers, in some cases, I know people have experienced this personally, will tell a person they can't date same sex, or they can't date a transgender person, or they can't date somebody who has a certain ethnic or religious background. I mean, that's actually happening out there. I've seen that in real life, in person. I've seen this happen. And who is meant to hold these people to account? Who stops the agency? How do you prosecute them? How do you get them arrested when they commit a crime against your family like that? Families have asked me these questions. I can't tell you, just how bad it is. This becomes a defining point for people's lives. This one situation ruins everything else about the person's life. It's swatting. This is swatting calls to CPS that people are experiencing. That's what it is. And the agency only just recently, in recent years, in states like Texas, has finally outlawed anonymous reporting, but it's too late because the damage is so catastrophic for some people. Just imagine losing your home, your vehicles, your job, your health insurance, all of your savings, all your investments, your retirement funds. You're sitting there, you're dealing with major natural disasters. Maybe you've had a death in your family or some other terrible things happen, a serious illness has happened, and then the agency is climbing up your ass, and they are trying to impose financial demands on you and time demands on you and wanting to search your home and all kinds of other horse shit. The agency is a tyrant. We don't need a Donald Trump for a child welfare agency, okay? I hate to go political with it, but these issues, the mandates that are in place that allow the agency to operate this way have been established by people who are tyrants. I don't know if it's strictly Democrats or Republicans. I don't know who sets most of the mandates for the agency, but the tyranny has to stop, okay? It has to stop. People need to be resisting the agency the same way that they're resisting the Trump administration. It's absolute tyranny. It's unjustified. The financial demands, parenting classes, toxic culture videos from the 1980s, having to pay for drug and alcohol testing when you have no drug and alcohol problems, having to be late to work because they won't adjust the visitation schedule for the 1 hour a week you get to see your kids so that you don't have to be late to work, and then you're getting disciplinary infractions because you're late to work simply so you can go to your visitation with your children at the Rainbow Room at a CPS office. It's crazy that people are having to deal with this. It's absolutely insane. And then you get to the office, and the office is 100 degrees in the visitation room. There's trash all over the floor. There's broken toys in the room. All the videotapes that they have for the kids to watch are not rewound. Kids can't crawl on the floor or touch the table in the visitation room because it's sticky and the floor is filthy. They come away with black hands and black legs. And parents are having to take cleaning supplies to the visitation rooms to clean themselves when they have got kids in custody. And imagine a situation like that going on for 12 months or 18 months with little to no justification whatsoever. Parents are impoverished. They're doing everything they can, maybe working 2, 3, 4 jobs or more, maybe 5 or 6 jobs, and going to school full time, and absolutely working at their limits simply to survive, living in a crappy, low rent housing because it's all they can afford, going to school full time, trying to make something of themselves. Then the agency comes along and penalizes the parents because they don't have childcare, or maybe there's not enough food in the house, or any number of other factors. Maybe somebody's made something up about them. And so the agency goes on a fishing expedition to persecute those people endlessly, without end. And you end up just being decimated by that process. And you're so stressed out as a parent, if you're one of those people, that you can't even, and I'm going to get graphic here for a second, some of these parents are so stressed out that they're having asthma attacks. They can't get, sexually aroused. They can't get an erection. They have sexual dysfunction from a severe, debilitating stress. They are absolutely, completely fixated on contact with the agency and doing everything in their power to break contact or avoid future contact after the initial contact is ended. It's like being hunted by the Gestapo. I swear to God, people are experiencing this. I've met these parents out there. I've talked to these people. I've met parents who've lost 4 or 5 of their kids. Maybe they've got 1 kid left. They're impoverished. They're on Social Security in some cases. They have nothing, and they can't have anything, because every time they get anything, if the agency manages to catch up with these innocent people, they completely unravel their entire life again. And then the agency will take people's kids and place them in harm's way. They'll place them in foster homes where 2 houses down, the house is burned down, or there's major crime happening in the community. In the foster placement community, there's violent crime happening. There's burglaries happening. There's rapes happening and murders happening. And maybe the foster mom locks the kids in a bedroom all day with no furniture on dirty floors. And that's where they have to sleep, is on the floor, giving them only animal crackers for meals and giving them bottled water. Just imagine being in foster care for a year and you're locked in a bedroom all day. All day. Literally all day. After being taken from a home that was furnished, air-conditioned, clean, where you had food, regular meals, clean clothing with no stains, and you're getting individualized personal attention from your parents. And CPS places you in an abusive home where you're being sexually assaulted, raped, maybe drugged, maybe forced to drink alcohol, maybe hit, abused by the other kids, having your stuff stolen, and possibly even killed. That's happened. I've read stories like that. And then there's other stories where, like this girl in Houston. There's a young woman in Houston. I'm not going to name her. Not going to give her age because she was underage. And CPS takes her. The mom was having some difficulties with her behavior as a teenager. She was African American. And the agency takes her and sticks her in a hotel in a children without placement housing. Okay? The little girl says she's hungry. And so the CPS worker shows up and tells her that she needs to sell herself into prostitution. On more than one occasion, she tells her this. She needs to sell herself into child prostitution in order to feed herself. And these are the people that they want to place in charge of the kids that they take. The child welfare agencies in Texas, Houston, and many other states are doing things like this. They're placing children in harm's way. Children are being hurt and killed. Hundreds of children in many different states are being sex trafficked while in state custody, where they otherwise would not be sex trafficked if they hadn't been put into the child welfare system to begin with. The system is not taking care of the needs of the kids. It treats them like numbers. They don't have their constitutional rights respected. They don't have their right of access to health care and education respected. They're not allowed to see their families on a fair basis with fair access. It's unreasonable, it's cruel, it's inhumane, both to the children and to the parents. And it incurs such a huge cost. And when I say huge, I'm talking between $30,000 and $50,000 minimum for one of these cases being open. You're having to travel back and forth, you're having to miss work, you're having to spend money on takeout because you don't have time to make meals between your 2 or 3 jobs or while you're going to school, so you can go see your kids when they're in the system. And you absolutely get no recognition for any effort that you're making all the way along the process. And the whole thing is designed to generate revenue for the state and local government and create jobs through this unnecessary removal, basically kidnapping of people's children. CPS is destroying people's lives, they're hurting kids, and they're placing people in harm's way. And this has become a rallying point, a firing point, because I've seen this do so much harm to people that I knew. I've seen people die. I have seen people lose everything, life savings, home, assets, all of it. The agency is an absolute menace. I understand why they exist. There's bad people out there, but they're taking kids from homes where they don't need to be taking kids from homes. And they're harassing people to the point where it's causing people to have very serious health problems. People are getting sick and they're dying because the stress and the constant looming threat of the possibility of having their children taken from them is wrecking people. It is catastrophic. It's dangerous to allow them to operate this way. Lives are being lost. I can't stress it enough. People need to write into their congressmen, congresswomen, their district representatives, their state senators, anybody that you can write about it. You need to be telling them, we need to put drastic restrictions and limitations on child welfare removals and the liberty with which they operate without oversight in terms of how they execute these investigations, in terms of the grounds by which they can take people's kids. It needs to be very, very strict. They cannot continue to be allowed to operate this way. I've written about this for years. They're destroying people. I swear I've seen this myself personally. I've seen it. I've seen people get hurt. I've seen people die and lose all of what they have. And there's not any cause that issues a higher degree of urgency than our children, than the children of Americans. And immigrants should have the same type of protections. They shouldn't be able to have their kids taken just because they arrive here illegally. I think it was 1978, they passed a law that put drastic restrictions on the removal of Native American children because they were finding that more than 30% of Native Americans were losing their kids to the system. We need the same level of protection in place to prevent unnecessary, unfounded child removals and warrantless investigations for people who haven't done anything wrong. All the way across the United States, for every U.S. citizen, for every immigrant. I've told you some of the things that I've heard, some of the things that I've witnessed. There's going to be a lot more later. Thank you for listening. Like my video if you found it informative or helpful. This is a cause that's very important to me. I appreciate your attention and your efforts to help me change things.